Good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much for being with us so early. At least it's not too warm, it's too hot, because we're going to talk about energy, energy choices, energy transition, climate urgency. We're all aware of the problem now. It is quite a significant topic, but there is another topic, which is, what energy for tomorrow? How can we reach the objectives 2030 or 50? So it's, we do have a most prestigious panel to discuss this, because our main speakers, so let me introduce the speakers, even though you might know them, so that there should be no doubt. Luc Rémont, which is president of EDF. I'm used to say good evening, so sorry, good morning, big good morning. So thank you for being with us. I know you're negotiating right now with the government about your strategic roadmap. You didn't talk much, so we will listen to you with a lot of attention. Then Catherine MacGregor, who is Director General of ENGIE. So thank you for being here. You are the energy choice. You well, about a year now, a year and a half. You're 2 years. You're two and a half years. You've been running ENGIE. Next to you, Patrick Pouyanné, manager of Total Energy. We have to say that now because there are several energies, and your teams are coming back to order. So why is there a more and more demand? We talk about oil decarbonation. Why do we need fossil energy? Then Arnaud Piéton, who is a Chief Executive Officer of Technip Energies. They do decarbonated infrastructures. We will ask him, do your clients ask for decarbonated energies or structures? And then next to me, Kaïseda Sadamori, Director of Energy Markets and Security in the International Energy Agency. So with no further ado, let's give the floor to one of the best experts in this domain, Patrice Geoffroy, member of the Cercle des Économistes, you know him well, in charge of the Geopolitical Energy and Raw Materials Center. Good morning, Patrice. You have the floor. You got a couple of seconds or minutes to give us tell us about the energy, the choices to be made, the situation, take stock of the situation, and project us as well. Thank you, Edwige. Good morning, all of you. So we happy to see such a full house, because I have a mandate from my president that is to have to recreate hope. But in my introduction, I have to list a certain number of reasons, and I found more than the time given by Edwige, and reasons for hope. Because hope is only optimism of the will. It would be useless. So first, well, collectively, if you're about what the terms of discussion and the level of anxiety in the same situation last year, the very dark perspectives, before winter, will we have enough gas, enough electricity, enough oil? Well, the system held on, and I was part of the board of directors of one of the affiliates of the companies here, in charge of importing liquefied natural gas, and LNGs, and so kind of a Marshall Plan. Infrastructures got reorganized, and today we are able to ponder the situation on a more peaceful basis, and the level of anxiety has dropped significantly. Last year we met when the price of gas was like 10 times 15 the price of electricity. All this is not finished, but I think the atmosphere is less morose. At least we can discuss it. Second reason to hope, and this is what the AI says, or Bloomberg says, when we look at the investment perspective, there are just as many investments, so-called green investment, than brown investments. So what we see with the war was some kind of an accelerator for a simple reason. We come from a world which, before the war, the issue of supply safety was fairly low. Among the concerns we may have had, I remember, I've been coming to Aix for quite a while, I think we never discussed such issues with so much tension and intensity. Thanks to Vladimir Putin, those problematics have come back to the fore. France imports 99% of its oil and 98% of its gas. And in a world where not everybody is our friend, well, this issue of energy supply security had been underestimated so far. Another thing we discovered, which doesn't come as a surprise, really, is that even our friends did not sell us the gas as a friendly price. You know, Norwegians, who are supposed to be our friends, you know, the gas purchasing conditions were not very, I mean, they were faithful, they sent us a lot of gas, but it was not exactly a friendly price. Third reason to hope, and again, I could have had a much longer list. Well, third reason to hope is that we are now putting figures and making economic calculations. Of course, these are the Rencontres d'Aix organized by the Cercle des Économistes. So, of course, we preach for our parish and Jean Pisani-Ferry for France. But, you know, order of magnitudes would apply everywhere, but he circulated some order of magnitudes in terms of investment needs for decarbonation, about 60 billion, slightly more, 2.5% of the GDP. Now, how are we going to finance this? Well, this is an urgent question. We don't have all the solutions, but this war, Ukraine war, at least made us understand the need for the payback last year, Europeans, and this is what Bruegel, which is a Brussels-based think tank, European government had to invest 700 billion euros into a buffer or shield. You know, we can't do that indefinitely. So the value of decarbonation and the value of the choices made and acceleration of decarbonation has to be associated through the prices I've avoided. I mean, there's been other energy choices in the future. I talk about sanitary shock, but this is what I had in mind as well. Lots of work shows that the collective cost of COVID has been reinforced by air pollution, which is not a surprise, because air pollution produces comorbidity factors, which cause tension on the healthcare system, which led to lockdown and whatever the cost, which for France means several hundred billions of euros. So when we will accelerate decarbonation, we'll need to mobilize public funds, but certainly financial engineering will need a lot of that. But we'll have shorter payback due to, you know, our risk nevertheless. Anyway, two little down notes, and especially Edwige was signing me that. So, two questions. First, which cover this problematic and the transformation plans of all companies, that is the rhythm, the pace at which we will stabilize nuclear production and deploy nuclear. We will we'll have renewable energies, gas and electricity, and we'll be able to transform infrastructures to transport hydrogen and possibly CO2. And then once we are in a race against time, you know, against the watch, you know, we have to understand that. And last point, which we probably won't detail, but which should prevail in our discussion. President Macky Sall, you heard yesterday, reminded us like 600 million Africans have no access to electricity, and this is a dimension to be borne in mind when we must recreate hope. Thank you, Patrice. Sorry, I have the bad role. I'm the lady of the watch. So anyway, Luc Raymond. You just joined EDF, the French Electricity Board. You are faced with nuclear underproduction. You are negotiating with the government, especially with the end of the AREM. So what price regulation? We know it's a rather tense discussion, almost a sort of arm wrestling discussion. Now, how can you assert what EDF, or the French Electricity Board, is all about? Thank you, Edwige. Good morning, all. First, production is rising up. Good. ramping up. So far, we can say that we will enter next winter with a lot of serenity, hoping that we could still rely on the sobriety efforts that have been done by all our fellow citizens on the call of EDF and the government, which was essential in winter 22-23, and for planetary needs, not just for equilibrium balance. We need to continue, but with this effort and with the continuation of EDF nuclear production, I think we can, will be fine for next winter. Then, time of choice. Well, those are strategic choices for our country for the entire energy mix. The first element, and I think that's a consensus, the need to keep decarbonating at forced rhythm, because the climate clock is ticking faster and faster. Forced decarbonation means that we have to look at all possible technologies that will allow for decarbonation, among which electricity, of course, and especially decarbonated electricity is the one with the highest decarbonation potential. So our duty as an electricity producing entity or utility is to open the way and to go as far as possible in providing, transporting, making available electricity to all our citizens and businesses as much as possible in a durable way. And of course, we have to keep operating with the production means available today, but we have to facilitate the creation of new production means. In the coming years, electricity will increase in terms of electricity consumption will increase. We need more electricity, but there are other production means which are coming than nuclear. So there is a diversity of production means which which is enriched in Europe and with renewable capabilities and decentralized capabilities, which will increase. And we must be able to ensure electrical system balance. Electricity is based on a system, as you know. There could be instant exchange of energy from one end of Europe to the other end, but this is unique, but we need to balance the systems. This should be ensured by networks and by the ability to produce on order, decarbonated electricity. And this is where we need to focus our attention. So this is what makes it possible to produce production at the scale of a country and the European and decarbonated electricity. And there will be others tomorrow that will take place. So in the meantime, we need to keep developing nuclear and hydroelectricity as the two controllable electricity production means and this is the main objective of EDF. We need a business model. You mentioned discussion. They're quite normal. And I will not use the words you employed, but for any operator, it's normal to have strategic discussions about the way its business model, which is the business model of the entire industry, not just EDF. And this will make it possible to have an investment curve which is unprecedented in history. Even when we built the nuclear stock in the 80s, 90s, we didn't have to invest in an existing stock, or we didn't have to invest in networks to ensure that there would be tens and hundreds of decentralized production, which today provides more electricity. So all this has to be handled together in a societal choice, which of course has to run according to a business model and a price where acceptable. It should be sustainable, but those are discussions which are necessary and which are professional and constructive. Just a question, because you are in the long term, needless to say, can you speed up the construction of EPR, nuclear power plants? We know this is one of the issues raised by the President of the Republic. Tomorrow, how long would it take to build an EPR? You've just started for EPR2 in Paris. Well, any industry does well when it does a lot. The nuclear industry for the last 20 years, nuclear industry has kept an existing stock of nuclear power plants. And last year, when we had to maintain at a high scale, we were react rapidly in 12 months. We went from the identification of a new problem to its industrial solving. So the construction of new reactors, nuclear reactors, is a practice which was limited in scale, has been limited in scale for the last 20 years. So you still need a lot of time. So our main challenge, and I trust, I'm confident that we will succeed, we want to come back to productivity gain when you scale up your production. We will do it, and for this, we have to change our sustainable scale for quick production of new reactors. This is our challenge, and we'll face it. Thank you. MacGregor, 2002 was the turnover and the war in Ukraine and the consequences it had on the Russian supply. Now, you multi-car that NGs. How do you make your choices and you assert yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm going to use the expression of Luc of systems, but I'm going to enlarge the expression because it's not just about building an electric system, an electric grid, but it is to build an energy grid, an energy system. So with a few convictions and a few strong choices, the one to accelerate the means to produce low carbon energy and to invest massively in renewable energies. At ENGIE, we did a simulation and scenario of decarbonization at the Horizon 2050. At the European level, clearly the energy consumption is going to increase massively by 80%. So we have to invest, accelerate in renewable energies. I would like to say a word on renewables because in France we talk a lot about nuclear, and it's a very important source of energy for France. But we tend to think that renewable energies are not really serious business. It's good, but for industry, it's just not going to do it. So maybe I'm going to give you an example. At the first semester 2023 in Germany, as in Spain, two countries with different geographies, different resources, the renewable energies represented over 50%. So it is a serious source of energy, and it is happening today. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't increase our efforts, and at ENGIE we are very motivated and mobilized to increase the production of renewable energies in the energy mix. So this is the first conclusion to complete the nuclear from that Luc presented. Second conviction, we're not going to do everything by electrifying. We're going to have to keep in this energy system. That's why I like to keep this expression. We're going to have to keep a molecule. Today it's a fossil gas. We're going to green it. So this gas that is going to become, that is already for a small amount, but it's going to increase. It's going to become biogas, biomethane. We're going to green the gas, hydrogen, and all its derivatives. Why? Because the molecule brings you the robustness that is necessary to the energy mix and to the energy system, and that prevents us from having a too big dimension for the electricity system, because if there's a day of it's very cold, it doesn't give us all the resource that you need, all the supply that we need. So it is all about combining electricity and molecules, which is a very singular vision that we have at ENGIE, and we defend it and we develop it. The third choice that is very clear, it's a choice of Europe for France, and the choice of Europe and also a more regional approach. But the choice of Europe is fundamental. We need each other. We need to bring electricity when in hard times. We need to export gas. This European vision is extremely important. We'll discuss maybe later on about the European market. It is fundamental that we keep the European market, a European market that works and that will give to the energy system the solidity that we need. Maybe with the last argument, which is when I talk about molecules, of course there's hydrogen, which is an emerging market. And if you think for 2 seconds about the fact that today we haven't managed to have a shared vision for hydrogen in Europe, while this molecule is just growing, it's just emerging. The market is not even there, and we can't even agree on a shared vision of hydrogen. I'm very sad to face that situation. I think we need to fix it and agree. We're starting from a white page, and there's no reason why we cannot identify a shared vision on that. Otherwise, our investments are going to be lagging behind, and I see it already today. I have one project today where I would like to produce hydrogen from a decarbonated electron, and because we don't agree on the regulation, I don't know if this project will see the light or not. And even though there's a very real sense of urgency, so let's go for European vision of this energy system. That's what I'm calling for. My wishes this morning. Thank you, Catherine McGregor.
Just a quick question. Today, gas, NG gas, where does it come from? Not but if you rapidly, you give us a...
So we import gas from Norway, from the Netherlands, from Algeria, and from the United States. But proportionally, it's well balanced. Of course, the idea is not to be over-depending on any supplier. And regarding the Russian gas, it represented 20% of our imports. So it's very important to keep diversifying our sources to avoid being over-dependent. This is a big lesson from last year's crisis.
Patrick Pouyanné, CEO of Total Energy. Each time, yes, there will be the end of the fossil energy, but we look at forecast. Well, 2023, I think there will be huge consumption of fossil energies. Now, again, what are your choices and how do you assert them? Well, Total Energy's choice is fossil energy, decarbonated electricity. Before answering the question of the roundtable, the first choice is apparently last year I shocked people because I explained that we had to lower the washing machine from 800 RPM to 400 RPM. But anyway, to save money for the clothes washing machine. But for Jean-Bernard, well, sorry. Jean-Bernard and Luc, we launched a discussion, three of us, to call for energy sobriety. This is the first teaching to recreate hope first, and especially financially speaking, for the purposes of the energy consumers. We have to save energy. Even we talk about the choice in terms of production, we need to save the energy. The French were able to save about 15% of energy last year, which helped the soundness of the system, and they did it for a reason. It was the price. When you got a price which is high, when you start reducing. Now, the question for us, the challenge is how do we maintain the effort made beyond this crisis? And we'll see if in 2023 we'll keep going. So keep doing it, and then second, and in what I've just described, second hope is that when the three managers start talking together, we have an impact and people listen to us, Well, if those three managers who seem to be, should be selling energy, tell us that we have to save energy, well, it's serious, so you are being listened to. So that's the first choice. Second lesson is that, well, you said it, Pascal, second choice, it was made. We have to ensure that the system is permanent. Last year, not only we didn't have Russian gas, plants could not produce, so we have to keep the idea of safe supply, last year and even tomorrow. And why did the system hold on? It was gas, because if we didn't have had the gas-fired electrical power plants, well, without the gas-fired power plants, the system would have failed. So we have to keep this in mind. It is, of course, and the second answer to energy, it's local energy, nuclear, renewable energy, biogases, but always keep in mind this and keep this in mind, and in this mix we'll always need fossil energy. Third lesson, third choice, which struck me last year, you said it, Pascal, somehow, is that the price of energy is what drives all the choices. I mean, you talked about the price, how much is it going to cost? So it has to be low. And And one of the lessons is that there was a price shock. We know that energy transition will cost more money, despite everything is being said, you know, to produce energy from a reliable system of sun power cells and wind farms and whatever, it will be more expensive than nuclear power plant. Now, but you know, we were able to rise the energy price, and I'm quite amazed, by the way, human beings. I mean, we have an ability to buffer shocks. To, you know, when we announced that we'll have the selling at 199 for the price of oil, it almost became a good thing. You know, because two it's a disaster. 199 it works. Well, anyway, so well. You get used to a sort of a price bracket. One of you said, well, the price of gas is normal, back to normal. For me, I sell gas, which is still fairly high, trust me, because in Europe we've gone from a price which multiplied by 2.5, 3, you know, compared to the pre-crisis. And because it is lower than the historical crisis last year, we think it's cheaper. Well, we will have to get used, and we'll have to make sure that consumers get used to pay more for the energy. It has to be gradual. The non-hope of last year, I'll react to what Pascal said. Europe has decided massively, well, you know, I said more than 500 billion euros, but what's a shame is that we subsidized fossil energy. Well, because this is what we live with. And, well, as you said, this is why Total Energy, and I say so, will keep produce fossil energy, because this is the system that keeps us alive today, and we won't succeed the transition against consumers. We cannot force them to change their energy demand because we say we'll have no petrol, no gas. This is something that will not work, because if we produce less, well, prices will ramp up and there will be a crisis. So we have to find a fair transition, to find the right balance between the system that exists and we will keep us alive, and the acceleration of the decarbonated energy system. We have to invest massively, more than we do, in our nuclear power plants, in renewable energies, in biogas. This is the true priority. It's not to dismantle the system, because this will not ensure fair transition. So in the crisis, it was a big crisis. Well, we have to think about the reaction collectively. We should have reasons for hope, and men tend to innovate, and we make decisions when we are about to hit the wall. So, well, the system held, we did that. It was like, you know, whatever the cost, but now the objective is to hold on with bringing it down to reasonable prices.
Patrick Pouyanné, just a question. Do you keep investing in fossil energies and in production? Yes, I do, and it's good. I have to. An oil field, you know, the world oil loses every day 4% of its production if we don't invest. 4% per year, because the pressure of price goes down and people produce less. So if you start in 2022, the production was 100 million barrels. If we don't do anything, it goes down to 96. And the IAE asked us to make it at 102. So for total boss, you know, it's a good thing because the price goes up, but you're going to be upset. So my life is going to be a complete mess. I saw it last year. I'd rather have a good life and make sure that I produce maybe 102, but 101 million barrels. So what is important is the idea is not the fossil fuels, it's the emissions of the fossil fuels. But you're going to tell me, but we decarbonize from 2015 to 2023, we reduced by 35% the emissions linked to the production of oil that we do all over in the world. So methane was reduced by 50%. It's the emissions that create an issue. And then, of course, we're going to have to find a way to produce different energies and to consume differently this energy, to consume less maybe, and to change the modes of transportation, etc. Yes, I fully own it, but I also said I would invest, you know, 5 billion in renewable energy. So that's a lot of projects that are being financed in the planet. So it's not nothing. Thank you, Patrick Pouyanné. Arnaud Pieton, you are the CEO of Technip Energy. When we talked before to prepare this roundtable, you told me this is more an addition of choices of energy rather than a transition, an ecology or an energy transition. Can you tell us how you feel, because you're the one who is building all the infrastructures? Hello, everyone. Yes, Technip Energies is the architect of all the major infrastructures of energy. Our clients are with me this morning. Well, we have new clients that are emerging as well, but we're not producers, but we're architects and contractor. So we operate in different countries. We have our own technologies and technologies that we have under license to build this infrastructure. What is interesting to know is we talk a lot about the energy transition, but rather talking about transition, we should talk about the number of layers. There's a layer of gold that hasn't really decreased, the one of gas not yet, and fuel either. And we add on that offshore, solar energy, etc. So it's the addition of these different productions of energy rather than a transition, an energy transition. We need this layered cake, so to speak. So the choice that Technip Energies made are the following. It's to dedicate the 15,000 engineers of the company, and that's our reason for being, and it's our strategic choice to dedicate those engineers to the journey to the net zero. Which includes gas, the biofuel, decarbonated hydrogen, the sustainable aviation fuels, etc., the SAF, etc. So this is a very strong choice. It was to dedicate our resources to finding the solutions to get to the net zero. The other choice, and Patrick said it, is that we made, and for which we don't have a choice, in fact, is that we need to reduce the emissions. And that is going to go with electrification, efficiency, carbon capture, and storage as well, the good energy and the decarbonated energy that everybody says is a good thing, that we're not quite capable today to exploit fully because the network does not use the whole quantity of energy that is available. So we need to crack that equation of storing these clean electrons and do something with it. There are several ways to go about it. There are batteries, molecule, and Technip Energies is going to be this bridge between the electron and the molecule. But the topic here is not to have less energy, but to have much less emissions, and that's where we're working hard at achieving. Is there a request from your clients? Because you told me that you could do some pipelines that are decarbonized. Does it come from the client's request, or do you tell them it's too expensive and we're going to do this later? Well, I'm going to give you an example, very concrete example. 2 years ago, we signed a big contract. Total Energy is a partner in this development of LNG in Qatar. And before we signed this contract, we had 2 years of studies. These studies started in a very traditional manner, looking at the conception, the design of the infrastructure. The client wanted exactly the same thing than the previous phases. In the meantime, we developed new technologies and that are scaling up, and here we had a way to capture the CO2 that comes out of the fuel, the tank, and then so we can sequestrate it in the aquifers. It was adopted by the client. It took 2 years to convince the client, and Technip Energies had to find a way to make these solutions acceptable financially for the client. He may not have wanted to pay much more for that, so we had to come up with solutions. The good news is that, of course, we showed some pedagogy for 3 years with the client, so we ended up signing for this decarbonized solution. And what we can see today very clearly is that we need less to be explaining things, and those solutions are asked for and are presented as options. And we have to give a choice to our clients to have the choice and to choose the solution that they want at the price that they want. So yes, people are asking for those solutions. That means that there's a transition underway. I hear you well. Now, Kesko Sadamori, you're working for the International Energy Agency. You can say that we are expecting your forecast with a lot of interest and sometimes a bit of anxiety because with this energy wall that we're facing, there's a reason to be anxious. Would you say that the situation has stabilized today?
Thank you for the question. I'm sorry, I'll be speaking in English. But the last year, 2022, we saw a very turbulent year in terms of the energy. So there is a oil supply difficulty. The IEA had to release emergency stocks twice last year. And also there was a natural gas price hike hitting all-time high, almost $100 per million BTU. Even coal prices exceeded $400 per ton. And so that was a massively difficult year in terms of the energy supply security, but there's also a positive element, which is that the energy crisis last year forced the governments around the world to reconfirm the value of clean energy technologies, not only for the climate change objectives, but also for the energy supply security reasons. And so the governments took a massively stronger policy measures to clean up the energy systems. And that seems to be working in numbers. And also the people around the world also realize the value of low carbon technologies, not only renewables, but also nuclear. And so there is a positive move on that. And if we look at the numbers, we will see a record deployment of renewables this year, hitting 440 gigawatts, which is massively largest historical records. And also we will see some nuclear power plants coming back in various parts of the world. So with that, the good news is that if we look at kind of a few years going forward, the new electricity demand, additional electricity demand will be almost entirely met by the low carbon sources. This means that the fossil fuel power generation will not increase, will stabilize. So that's a very positive development, and we expect that will need to be accelerated. But there's also a note of caution, which is that we are still not on track. The CO2 emissions are still increasing. Last year we saw, not big, but the world is emitting something like 36.8 gigatons of CO2 from the energy systems, and that increased 0.3 gigaton last year. So we are not decreasing. You have to remember that in 2022, we saw an all-time high of consumption, production, coal-fired power generation, and coal prices in coal. So we are not yet there, but at least when we look at the electricity systems, it is turning much cleaner. But the electricity is only 20% of the final energy consumption and 40% of the entire energy-related emissions. So that means that we need to take care of all the energy systems, and that's still very difficult. We are seeing the emergence of hydrogen and also probably ammonia, and we need to use all those available technologies to clean up the energy systems. We cannot be choosy. So we need to use CCUS, nuclear, whatever all those low carbon technologies, and also the energy efficiency first, of course. So we need to double the rate of energy efficiency improvements toward the 2030. So we are seeing some positive moves, and we are seeing the kind of the pickup in clean energy investments. But we have so much to do to bring us on track to achieve the net zero by 2050 path. Thank you.
So much to do, j'ai envie de dire, c'est ce que je retiens. On a compris.
So much to do. We understood that frugality is a good thing, but it's not enough. We have to accelerate because we have many questions for you. Maybe you have questions in the room as well, or you, the panelists, on the safety of supply. There's still some concerns. I don't know who can answer that question around this table. Catherine McGregor, Patrick Pouyanné, anybody wants to take the floor? Yes, so much to do. Yeah, I understand your question, but so much to do is a real call for action, isn't it? And we need to put it back in perspective that sometimes we are paralyzed with our story of regulation in Europe. We need to go over this and accelerate. And on the safety of supply, thanks to the efforts of frugality that were commended by Patrick early on, and the efforts on supply, we were helped by the climate. The stocks are full. so we can look at the winter with peace of mind. Maybe, Luc, you want to say something on the electric system, because of course there's some links between the gas and electricity, but we are quite comfortable looking at the winter ahead. That doesn't mean that we have to show more frugality, but we also maybe have to ask our questions again for next winter. The additional capacity of gas that are going to feed the world market will only arrive in 2026, 2027. So we still have to be on a very volatile system for the months to come. Patrick, Luc, I am not that at peace, because if I look at the prices a year ago, they are higher than today. What does that show? That there's some people are nervous. Yeah, the stocks are full, but we don't have enough stocks in Europe to cover the winter if we have a cold one. It's a physical situation. It's a strange system. We haven't built enough storage space. So if we have a cold winter, we have to bring back a liquefied natural gas and the friendly prices. You know, it doesn't work in a world market. So the only way to bring natural gas in Europe is to steal it from others, which is what we did last year. We got over 10% of the world market that we took from the Vietnamese, Bangladesh, and Pakistan to bring it back to Europe. But we paid a very high price. We drove the prices up last year. Let's not forget this. So if we still have a cold winter, we may have to bring back this liquefied natural gas. We'll find it. We'll bring it back. I guarantee you. We both, between each of us, we insure 50% of France, so we make sure we get it, but at a price. So you will all have gas and you will be warm in your homes, but I don't know how much you're going to pay for them. Patrice, Luc Rémond, yes. I wanted to talk, when I talked about friendly prices, I wanted to underline that it doesn't make any sense, and we made the experience, we experienced it together last year. So the fact that we meet in the middle of the summer at the peaceful moments, that we're far away from the concerns that are going to comes the winter again. But on the longer run, I think what could happen in the U.S. in case of a change in the political cycle, I'm not sure that the Republican president, would send us some gas in such high amounts, big amounts. So there's a specific value to frugality. Luc Rémond, I will go back to frugality. I'd like to go back to frugality first of all. This is the first factor that helps to protect the planet and that helps us to be less dependent on the third parties. Then, of course, we need to be as available as possible on the production means that don't depend on third parties. So the decarbonated electric production. We, of course, in the nuclear sector, we feed our uranium, but we don't have a dependency in the short term. So I'd like to say a word on hydroelectricity very quickly then, because that was one of the arguments that lacked at the European level last year, because not only France, but all the European countries were facing a drought that dropped the level of hydroelectricity, which is the key element of the energy balance. This year, at the beginning of the summer, we have the dams that are full versus last year, and so it's good news. So I'm quite comfortable looking at the winter. So, Keisuke Sadamori, you wanted to add something?
Fully agree that we are now in a very comfortable position in terms of the gas in the gas storage in Europe. We need to inject a lot less compared with last year. So we're in a very good position, but I would like to point out that this is not a guarantee for the next winter, because if the cold winter comes, and if Russian situation becomes worse, and there's other kind of the growth in LNG demand in other parts of the world, then Europe may need to go through some difficult situation this winter again. So I think I would like to warn against the complacency here, but also the natural gas, the availability, affordability of natural gas, it's not only an issue in Europe, but also around the world. And when we remember what happened last year, so Europe had to procure enormous amount of additional LNG from the global markets, mostly from the United States. Then what happened was that the global natural gas prices shot up to an unprecedented level. That meant that the countries in South Asia, like the India or Bangladesh, they had to either give up the electricity or switch back to coal. So I think that the affordability of natural gas, that's a very important factor, but we also have to bear in mind that people's lives in other parts of the world also depend on that.
Merci beaucoup.
Je voulais juste dire, rebondir sur le...
Thank you very much. I just wanted to add a word on the price. It's not the American president who produced the LNG. It's all private companies. We're the biggest exporter of the American LNG. The only thing that could happen is that Republicans decide not to export anymore and to stop, to cut exports. And I'm not sure that would affect gas. It could affect fuel. It would have oil, because all Americans, they steer their policies on the domestic price of gas and oil. So if they have resources, they feel that exports drive their prices up, they stop it. So if on top of the Russians, we don't have American oil and gas, this is going to be a real shock. So yes, in this way, elections can have an impact, but they don't make the decision. It's the private actors. Absolutely.
La question du prix, parce qu'on...
On the question of price, because we can't get into details, can we expect that the peak, we've reached the peak, the energy peak in terms of prices, or can we expect some difficult years ahead? Who wants to answer the question? Luc Rémond, maybe we can take everybody. Do you have another hour in front of you, Edwige, on the price? No, I have a minute. Patrick said it, we're not going to tackle this energy transition without having long-term visibility on our economy. And our economy requires us to invest. In order to invest, of course, what needs all the operators are here is visibility, long-term visibility, which lacked mostly, I'm talking about the electric market, the electricity market, which is mine today, is visibility, long-term visibility, and the capacity between the producers that we are and the consumers who are in the room and elsewhere to be able to contractualize on the long term. And that was the decision that is made in the European negotiations. And we need to apply it pragmatically. Unless we can adapt it pragmatically in Europe, that's what we need. It would provide more stability and would avoid the war prices, so to speak. Why are we suffering today? Because we have war prices dictated by the war. So we could mitigate those risks and give the consumer stability, long-time visibility. That's the key element in order to really go into this phase of transition for energy that is unprecedented, and to make sure that is reasonable for the consumers, and at the same time that it gives the operators that we are the capacity to invest. Catherine McGregor? In order to, I will add something to what Luc said. I would like to say a way to keep this cost of the energy transition and eventually the cost of energy as a more reasonable price as possible is to have some more leeway. So we need some capacities in terms of renewable energies, decarbonated energy, and we need to invest significantly in the infrastructure so we can have this resilience, this capacity to store and have the robustness in the energy system that will allow us to keep the cost under control. I would like to say in Spain, at the first semester of the year, we did a survey. You know, Spain has developed massively renewable energies. 130 days of the 131st days of the first semester, the spot prices in Spain were lower than those of France. So this is a very concrete example, and they invested massively in renewable energies. If we have an energy mix that is decarbonated and a good price for the consumer, that's a concrete example. We can all get there. Patrick Pouyanné, a few words. I don't like to be the guy with a crystal ball, but I predict that because of the energy transition and because we invest less in fossil fuels, the price of oil is going to keep fairly high. I'm not exactly sure where, but the gas price, because Technip is happy because they're building plants of LNG everywhere, so we'll have too much of that. But which is good, because then the price will go down and we'll have consumers in Asia, because that's where we need them. And then for electricity, I have a very strong conviction, and that's why Total is becoming Total Energies, and we invest massively in electricity. Because, of course, yes, these renewable energies are intermittent because the sun is hard to manipulate and to control. So we need storage capacities, and we don't have those yet. If you look at the whole system, unless you keep a lot of sinks open, it's going to cost a lot more. I think the debate is underway. So, but Patrick Pouyanné, no, the renewables are not profitable at the moment. Catherine McGregor is going to answer you, and Luc Rémond as well. No, I want to finish what I'm saying. I'm sorry, I have the right to. So, but okay, go ahead. You can answer. No, of course, we haven't defined all the components of the energy system. Of course, we need some assets that are flexible. We need to invest in batteries. Of course, the gas plants will play a massive role because renewables increase the instability in the electricity system that need to be stabilized. We see this every day. So but this whole energy system so anyway, decarbonated energy will cost more than today, and I believe that if you do investment, and if you don't take 100 euros per megawatt hour like you do, you don't invest if offshore energy in Europe with 50 euros per megawatt hour. So now that we built an electric box, we have a lot of assets in electricity, 20 billion. So we're going to do 2 billion profit this year. So results. So electricity, we need to invest in it, but you can make money out of it. That's the one lesson. But you shouldn't tell people that because the sun is free, it's not going to cost money. The decarbonated system will cost more than the traditional one. So I think we need to extend our time because I'd love to see Catherine and Patrick getting passionate about electricity. I really enjoy this this moment. Arnaud Piéton, a message, and then 1 minute, because I know that there's some students in the room, and you heard it, the challenges that we have about the invention of a new system that needs to be at scale. They're still continuing their conversation, and we need engineers, and this is a very important French resource. So please help us solve this challenge, please.